Excellent, brilliant. Thank you, guys. So first of all, welcome. It's so amazing to see some of you. I know I've met at the conference and a lot of you who I've worked with in the past. So brilliant. Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about today's session because I think it's one of the most crucial session or crucial aspect to work on in today's times, specifically because we all are isolated and we all are in our homes. And I've personally had this experience where uh, I've personally had this experience where when I work from home for a longer period of time, initially it's great, initially it's amazing, but over the period of time, it kind of starts getting to you because there are so many distractions and there are, when you're working, the bed is just like next door and the kitchen is just right there where you can quickly eat food or you can just get easily distracted by Netflix because there's no one watching you, or even when you're working from home, people at home can always come and distract. So there's so many things that can happen, and eventually not being able to get out and not being able to meet other people could start getting to you from a very mental and psychological point of view, and so for you to be able to develop this really high performance routine would be excellent. I see that some of you say that you can't. I mean, most people are able to hear me. So in the past, we've had this. If you are not able to hear me, can I suggest that change your browser or change your device? Because usually some browsers has an issue. Or if you can change your device and once you change your device, your audio should start working. Uh, can I'm gonna. This is one of the most stupid thing to do because since they can't hear me saying it. Yes, thank you, Pooja. Thank you for letting them know. Thank you. Brilliant. You guys are amazing. It's brilliant. Good. Okay. So I'm just uploading the PPT now. Now, while I do that, so this webinar is going to be a very workshop style, right? So there is going to be a presentation, but those are lots of activities. So my aim today is to take you through the process. My aim today is to take you through series of activities so that you can, really experience how to build new habits and how to create new habits. So some of the things which could be really useful is that I'm going to give you 1 minute. If you don't have a book and a pen next to you, could you please go and get a book and a pen so that you can, do those activities. And second thing is have a water or something around you. And in the meanwhile, I'm just gonna try and sort out the audio issue for these guys. Okay. Okay, brilliant. So hopefully this should be able to sort out your audio issues. Great. Okay. So let's start with our session for now. So the first thing that I really want to uh, check with you is, what is your understanding of habits, right? What do you, so if you can put it in the chat box, what is, what do you understand? What are habits? Okay, so Kush said the habits are automated way of doing things. Okay, what else? Patterns of behavior, something that we pursue, we use unconsciously. What else? Stimuli, response, patterns, exactly. So, a very natural way of defining habits are something that we repeatedly do, right? So, habits are everything from the time we start walking, right? Initially, when you start walking, you take one step at a time. But when you repeatedly walk, then it becomes a habit and it becomes unconscious. So, something that you repeatedly do is defined as habit. But most people think that it's just about what you do externally. So, for example, eating healthy, or exercising, or having your routine. When I asked you what are some of the habits that most of your response was about things that are externally driven. It could be eating healthy, exercising, being productive, not procrastinating, eliminating negative habits. What most people miss out on is the fact that habits are also internal. Right? Habits are also what you think, you know. So anything that you think repeatedly becomes a habit for you. Anything, let's say, any internal dialogue that you keep practicing over and over again, it becomes a habit for you, right? And so most people kind of forget, or most people don't focus on internal habits, whereas most people just focus on the external, and which is seen in the responses that you gave as well, right? Because most of the responses that you shared or that you gave is about things that you want to do on the outside. Now, the real transformation happens when you focus on internal habits. Because the thing is that when you shift your internal habits, automatically your external habits easily gets taken care of. And that's what we're going to focus on today's session. We're going to focus on that. How can you first become aware of your internal habits? How can you become aware of your internal thoughts? How can you become aware of your uh, internal voice in the head, the things that you see, the things that you continuously feel over and over again, and how can we shift them, and that eventually translates to the external habit. And of course, the next step of this process would be that how can we translate that external habit into creating a really powerful high performance routine or a high performance daily experience, so that you can live your ideal day every single day of your life. Does this make sense so far? So keep putting it in the chat box. Say yes, no, maybe. If you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat box. All right. So now the thing is that internal habits are much more powerful, because when you think about something over and over again, as some of you have already mentioned, that habits are something that becomes unconscious. So initially you practice it consciously, but then it just goes to your unconscious mind, and it just becomes really unconscious function. So let's take an example that, let's say, if you have an internal dialogue which says, I'm not good enough, and then you keep saying that over and over again, eventually it will get to a place where it will just become unconscious, where you just feel like you won't be good enough. Uh, and so, to be able to be aware of what you are internally practicing day in, day out, every day is one of the most important things to have. So, my question to you guys is that if you can just take a moment or two to really think about some of your internal habits, right? What are some of your internal habits that you continuously repeat for yourself? And if you can think about something and put it in the chat box, that would be great so that we can all experience it. Excessive thinking. Excellent. They don't like me. Yeah, that's a good one. Working out. Internal chats before responding. There's this murmur going on. Yes, absolutely. I'm not doing enough. Delayed action. It's amazing. Wow. Am I making a mistake? And that was a question mark, right? Such a amazing impact that you have. Okay. Wow. Okay. This is all going really fast. I'm not able to keep up with all the messages, but workaholic, inferiority complex. Uh, yeah, these are some amazing things, and it's just amazing, right? One of the studies which I think was done in Duke University that said that 40% of the actions or 40% of the things that we do in a single day are dependent on your habits. So, which means about 40% of the actions or the responses that you have in a single day, it's something of your unconscious response. And so, which means that if you're constantly programming your mind and creating these unresourceful internal habits, then that's what drives your life for about 40% of your day, and which is an interesting way to live life, right? So what we're going to do is today I've built three powerful frameworks to today I've built three powerful frameworks to work on developing habits. So one is the habit structure. Now, the thing is, the fundamental principle behind the habit structure is that as humans, we are already great at building habits. That's how we function. Walking is a habit. Us learning a language is a habit. Us speaking is a habit. Us typing, like you guys are chatting right now, is a habit. And so to recognize that what's the habit structure that we already follow, and how can we use that structure to kind of start building new habits. And so that's going to be like the first part of the webinar. The second part of the session is going to be on something that is known as identity-based habits. There is this amazing guy called James Clear. He's done a lot of work on identity-based habits, and these are some of the most powerful ways to build sustainable habits. Because I'm sure that all of you have had experience where, you know, you want to build a new habit, and you've done it for like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, but eventually you kind of fall back on the old patterns, or you don't consistently work on the new patterns. And that's because most of the habits, one, as I mentioned earlier, that they're externally driven and not internally driven. So that's going to be the first focus. And the second is that the most habits are very action oriented rather than very self oriented. And so this identity based habits is a system through which you can learn to build a sustainable but self focused, internally based habits, and which obviously eventually results all of it to external habits. Because, of course, if you change everything on the inside, but if nothing translates on the outside, then it doesn't really matter, right? Good. So let's start with the uh, first step. So let's look at the habit structure, right? And this comes from science of building habits. A lot of this things comes from neuroscience, and as James Clear says, right, that your life is essentially some of your habits, and that's why I find that habits are one of the most important aspect to work on, because most of the things that you do on day-to-day basis are a function of how you have programmed your internal habits and how that translates into your external habits, right? So this is the structure of habits. This is how habits work, right? I'd like you to maybe think about a habit that you already have. It could be unresourceful, it could be something like a negative habit, or it could be a resourceful habit. But can you put it in the chat box? A habit that you think you already have. It could be eating unhealthy, it could be waking up at a certain time, it could be working at a specific time, it could be smoking, it could be exercising, procrastinating, sleeping late, waking up late, uh, taking mobile phone to the loo. Of course, that's a very interesting habit. Uh, Exercise, eating outside food regularly. Are you still getting outside food? Huh, interesting. Multitasking, but feeling low about the output. Excellent. So if you can all think about one habit that you currently have and just write it down in your notebook, right? Just put it down in your notebook and we'll unpack the structure of it. Yes, unable to get up early morning, deciding to work out and cheating on the same day. Yes. Okay. Exercise. Brilliant. Now, if you look at the structure of the habits, there are mainly three elements. Right. The first thing that ever happens is a trigger. So I'm going to take an example of, let's say, eating unhealthy food. Okay. When we think about eating unhealthy food, the first step is always a trigger, because you're not even thinking about unhealthy food till something pops up in your mind. It could be an externally driven trigger, or it could be an internally driven trigger, right? So to give an example, what could be an externally driven trigger? It could be that you saw an ad on TV. You saw this really amazing picture of this really fried food, and the moment you see that, that kind of triggers this internal craving, right? And that craving kind of leads to you going like, okay, I need to, because the craving is really so strong that it leads to you going like, okay, I need to go and take action. Now, so that's an external trigger. An internal trigger could also be that you see the same thing, but on the inside, right? So on the inside, you suddenly you're browsing, you're sitting, and suddenly you got this image, like a video or a picture of this really juicy fried food, and the moment you have that, you start salivating, right? You start feeling that taste, and that creates that craving, right? So the first step of any habit is a trigger. Something sensory based has to happen either externally or internally to trigger a habit. That habit translates into craving. May it be a good habit or a bad habit, but it translates into craving. Like let's take an example of a good habit, which is like exercising. Uh, so exercising, the trigger could be that I suddenly see myself being really fit. So there is this video that I play in my mind. That triggers, okay, I've got to exercise. So I get this really craving, this feeling of feeling fit. And so then I go and take action of exercising. One of the question is that could it be time? It could be, because a lot of times time are anchored. So I'm sure a lot of you have experienced that at a certain time of the day, automatically you have this certain triggers that goes up. Like for example, like 4 in the evening, you automatically get this craving of drinking tea, as I am drinking right now. Or at certain point, some people have this time-based triggers of smoking or sleeping. So time is definitely can be a trigger. Uh, so I've got your questions, Shashank. I'll come to that answer, right? So one is to understand that every habit, everything that we do has a trigger. And from a neuroscience point of view also, what happens is that every time there's a trigger, there is a repeated pattern, it forms a neural connection. And the stronger the neural connection is, the healthier or the more intense the habit becomes. And when a neural connection is really strong, it's difficult to break that habit. If it's weak, then it's easy to break that. It's easy to break that habit, right? So you've got this so far. So there is a trigger that kind of that elicits this craving, that really strong craving, and to fulfill that craving, you go and take action. So which is that go and order your fried food. So that's the actual part of taking action that forms into a habit. And once you have that, so once you got your food and once you eat it, once you have that, you will experience a certain reward. Now, one is the reward of fulfilling the craving because you had this really strong craving, and the reward is that it's getting fulfilled. But then there is a reward of experience as well. It does something for you. It makes you happy, or it stimulates your mind depending what the habit is, right? For a lot of people, the reward for smoking is that it stimulates their mind. They start thinking. For a lot of other people, the reward for smoking is belonging because they feel that they are part of something. They're part of a group of people when they are smoking, right? So there is a reward to fulfilling those habits. Now the thing about the reward is also that reward teaches your mind what to pay attention to, right? Reward teaches your mind that how do you uh, you know every time you have a reward, your mind understands that, okay, this pattern is useful because it's eventually leading to this reward. If it's not leading to a reward, then your mind will go like, okay, this pattern is not useful, and it becomes difficult for you to uh, build a habit. And yes, just like Angela said, that reward creates dopamine. So that's your feel good emotion. So does this make sense so far? I know that a lot of you asked many questions, and I'll come back to all of these questions just in a while, right? But does this make sense so far? Okay. Like Kush says, yeah, when you have nothing to do, you observe yourself suddenly having compulsive behavior to go to Facebook and do something, and absolutely. Even space is a trigger, right? When you have nothing to do, that's a trigger. I think Seema asked that sometimes emotions also trigger, right? How many of you feel like eating a dessert or an ice cream when you don't feel good? You don't feel good, you want to make yourself feel better. So you see that reward that, okay, I want to make myself better. How do I make myself better? Eating an ice cream. So that ice cream becomes a trigger. And that trigger then translates into craving, and then you take action. And when you take action, you get that reward. The moment you have that reward, it forms this pattern in your mind. Right? So this is the fundamental structure of habits. I mean, this structure was initially kind of discovered by, it's a very difficult name to pronounce, Kobinsky, and it's a Russian guy who did the initial work on this in 1920s and 30s, and which eventually led to, of course, the most famous is Pavlov's experiment. And then a lot of people over the period of time have built on different essential structure, which is more or less the same on creating and building habits. Right? Now, the thing is, Fundamentally, since you recognize this structure, you can use this structure to create new habits as well, right? Because if you want to build a high performing routine, or build new resourceful and inspiring habits, go to your ideal day. All you've got to do is use the same structure, because anyways you have learned from your childhood to use this structure. So in a way, you already know how to build habits easily and sustainably. It's just that you haven't learned to build habits sustainably consciously. So how do you build this structure, right? The first step of building this structure, in fact, even before we do this, let's do this together, right? So can you all think about one habit, right? Or uh, one, yeah, pattern. It could be external or it could be internal. It doesn't really matter, that you want to build in the next week, right? So can you all think about that one habit or pattern and put it down in your book, or also share it in the chat box? I'll wait for you to share that. Okay, eat slowly, organizing, eating food on time, reading, meditation. It is going really fast. Daily writing, absolutely. Getting up at 6 a.m., basic work, waking up, writing, exercise, yoga. Brilliant. Getting up in the morning. This is so common, getting up. Maybe we should have a separate webinar on specifically how to get up early in the morning. Self-introspect, discipline life, journaling, 2 hours of reading, research, learning related content, overthinking. Okay. Stop feeling guilty for not being able to do things, work efficiently. Brilliant. Excellent. So all of you have something. Announcing your pro bono coaching well-being session. Brilliant. Right. So now the first step, like we learned just before in the earlier slide, that the first step in creating a new habit is that you need to have a trigger, something that reminds you, right? Because more or less, people even don't even become aware of what they need to do. All right. So think about a trigger, something that could remind you that this is the habit that you want to develop. Now, this can be an external trigger or it can be an internal trigger, right? So to give you an example, an external trigger could be you putting a post or a picture on your refrigerator or on your desk that you can see, and it easily triggers a certain pattern, a certain craving. Or it could be an internal trigger where you have this internal image, internal video, or a sound, something that you tell yourself, and that could trigger your pattern. For me, some of you already know that one of my goals is to climb Mount Everest, which I was supposed to do next year, which is clearly getting postponed because I'm not able to train right now because of this situation. But if not next year, I'm going to do the year after that. But I have this very vivid image in my head of me being on top of Mount Everest. And I can look at the world, and it's very surreal, and it's so associated and so intense that every time I think about it, I automatically get motivated to work out. Like, because I'm like, every time I'm working out, it's getting me closer to my goal. So that's an example of an internal trigger. So think about any trigger that you want to have for yourself. And some important things about this trigger is that it has to be easily accessible, right? It's not something that is hard to get. Like for example, like Shashank mentioned, that can a write-up of end goal be a trigger? It can be, but you need to make it easily accessible. If it's like on your blog, then every time for you to access this, you'll have to go open the laptop, open the blog, and then look at it. No, something that's easily. Sorry, are you able to hear me now? Better? Yeah, I get excited and I lose. Yeah, brilliant. So something that's easily accessible, right? So for the habit that you want to develop, what could be the trigger? Now the trigger has to be sensory. It's something that you see or hear or feel. It could be again externally, like a song or a music or a picture or a video. It could be internal, like internally you see something, internally you have a video, anything like that, right? So that's the first step. A trigger, yes, it could be a wallpaper on the phone or desktop, but a trigger that can have this really strong craving, right? The next step is action. Now, what most people do is that when they think about taking action, they think about this really big chunk action, like something really big that they want to achieve. But that's not the best way to take action. So the best way to plan your action or to plan your habit is to make it really, really easy, right? Make it really small chunk. Like some of you said, you want to start writing. If you want to start writing like one paragraph a day. Make that, make it as easy as Leo, who's from Zen Habits, is amazing guy, says that make it so easy that you can't say no. So make it so easy and accessible that there is no way you can say no to taking that action. If it's writing, write one paragraph a day. If it's waking up early, most people go like, if they're used to waking up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, they go like, okay, I'm gonna today start waking up at 5 o'clock so that I can have my morning routine. But that's challenging to have because it's not an easy, you're not making it easy for yourself. An easy action would be that, hey, you're waking up at 9 o'clock. You know what? Tomorrow I'm gonna wake up at 8:45. Uh, that's easy to do. That's easy to achieve, right? And then the next day 8:30, and then the day before 8:15. In about 10 days time you will be at 5 o'clock, right? And then you can practice being at 5 o'clock. So make that action as easy as you can make it. And then the next step is obviously you want to allow your mind to build patterns, right? So your mind will only build pattern when it's getting a reward, when it's getting something like Angela had mentioned, when it's releasing dopamine. And so you want to have a fulfilling reward. Like for me, when I work out, my reward is one, a really strong feeling of, me moving towards climbing Everest. Uh, Sometimes, like yeah, Preeti said, having something at stake could also be a reward, because when you do something, then you're eventually going to get that reward. But the question to really ask is that how can you make this habit really fulfilling? So you can ask yourself, why this habit? What will it give you? What experience you will have? Right? It could be the experience of freedom. It could be the experience of feeling good. It could be the experience of being healthy. Uh, it could be the experience of getting relief. Yes. Seema says you can't. Can you guys hear me, or are you guys not able to hear me? Okay. So I think there could be some challenge with your settings, Seema. So maybe you can check that. All right. So does this make sense so far? Okay. Brilliant. Okay. So what you want to do is just take a moment. So you've already written down a trigger, you know. Next step is share, maybe in the chat box, that what's the action? What's the smallest action that you can take that's so easy for you to do that you can't say no to it? So, can you put it down in the chat box? What are those actions that you can take for building new habits? 15, 20 minutes of daily reading. Set alarms to eat on time. Yeah, setting alarms easy, right? Whether you eat on time is different, but it's the first action. Just 3 asanas only. Brilliant. Excellent. Put it up on LinkedIn account about your pro bono coaching. Excellent. Uh, wake up in the morning. Yes. To-do list. Yeah. So start really small, but make sure that when you think about these actions, these are really easy for you. And then the next question is that how can you make this really fulfilling for you? So what's the reward? How can it be really fulfilling for you? Can some of you share that? Striking down a goal when you achieve it, yes. Get into action slowly. You'll feel better. Yeah. There are support structure like cult, as for those of you looking for exercises, yes. Okay, brilliant. So the question is that how can you make it really fulfilling for you, and then focus on that. All right. So I hope this makes sense. So what you're doing is that you're using the your common pattern that you normally use to build habits, and using the same pattern that you're already good at to build new habits. All right. So these are some of the structure. Excellent. Uh, Getting to the next step, which I think is one of the most significant process of building habits. All right. It's what it's called the identity based habit system. So again, this is one of the most fundamental aspects is that a lot of your habits comes from your current sense of self, your current sense of who you are, and your current sense of how you see yourself. So, just to give you an example, this is a really, it's kind of funny, at least funny to me, story. Right? So, I'm going to quickly share a story. So, there used to be this time, maybe about 7, 8, 9 years back, uh, that I used to live alone in this house that I currently live in. And so, what used to usually happen is that I was a bachelor and I had a house to myself. So pretty much all the time when all the friends who wanted to get together would get together at my place. Now the thing is, I love people. So I love talking to people. I love connecting with people. I love having people over. I love playing host. So I always enjoyed that everyone got together at my place, and we kind of, yeah, we did things together, and we hung out and we had fun. Uh, the part that I don't or didn't enjoy is that all of these guys, like bunch of people, right? They would come home and we would have this amazing time together, and they would leave, and then it was just me with cleaning up of the house, right? How many of you have experienced that? I'm sure at some point in your life you have, right? Yes, exactly. And I didn't always enjoy it because there are just 10, 12 people, and this house gets really messy, and I'm thinking every night, like, oh God, I have to clean this. Oh God, I have to create this. So one of these days, when all of us were together, what I started doing was that there was this one guy who used to live in the same apartment. And so we were, all of us were hanging together, and I really wanted to change this. I really wanted to change this idea that I have to clean up alone. But I also felt I was holding myself back on telling people that, guys, come and help me clean. So what I did was, I just, in front of everyone, I made this statement about a friend whose name is Nitin. And I just said that, Nitin is my only friend because he's the only one who helps me clean every time we all get together or we all party. Now, he actually didn't do that. He had never stayed back. But if you notice that I created this habit, I created this identity for him, where I created this identity where he said that he's my only friend who helps me clean in front of everyone. And so what happened next was that for him to live up to that identity with me, he had to help me clean because it got associated in his mind that Nishid made the statement, this is the identity I have in his life. So now I have to keep up to this identity. And so after that, every time we had party, and I'm not kidding, every single time we got together and we had a party, he would be the one staying back helping me clean. Now, that became a habit for him, right? And that habit originated from the identity that we created for him, where he went like, this is the friendship, this is the place that I need to maintain, and so I need to help him clean. Does this make sense so far for you guys? Okay, brilliant. Don't go and experiment this on other people in your life, okay? I don't want them coming back to me saying that, what did you teach to these guys? Why are they being all this manipulative and weird? uh, so that now the thing that happens is that most people focus on, when they focus on creating habits, they focus on outcomes, right? So outcomes are saying things like, I want to eat healthy, or I want to exercise every day, or I want to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning. So when you focus, that's a very outcome focused approach of creating habits. A lot of people focus on the process. So when someone says that I want to lose weight, the process is I'm going to go to gym every day. When someone says that I want to have a productive day, the process is that I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. Uh, when someone says that they want to, let's say write a blog or write a book, the process is that they're going to write every day. So some people focus on outcomes. So they build habit based on focusing on outcomes. Some people focus on process. But the real change happens when people focus on identity, right? So who are you being when you're creating a habit? So the same example which I said, when my friend created this habit for himself, this identity for himself, he automatically formed a habit of helping me clean the house. And so focus on the real sustainable habits, or real sustainable change happens when you're focusing on your identity, when you're focusing on your sense of self. Does this make sense so far? So just to give an example, right? If your outcome is to, let's say, lose weight, an identity that you can operate from could be that I am a person who exercises every day, right? And when you automatically operate from that identity, it will become much easier for you to take action, right? So the action again could be really small, which is easy for you to achieve. So it could be spending 10 minutes a day exercising, right? So this is the structure of creating identity based habits, right? For the habits that you have just mentioned, right? All of you have listed down the outcome, that the habit that you want to create. Can you all share again in the chat box, what's the new identity that you can create for yourself or that you can operate from to achieve that habit easily? And usually, identity statements are, I am the person who is XYZ. So, what could be those identity statements? I am the person who is calm and fit. Brilliant. I'm a responsible person. I'm a calm person. Excellent. I'm a person who loves to stay fit. So, Asha, when you say, I want to be leadership, that's something in future. So, to rephrase it with, I am a leader, or I'm a person who focuses on leadership. I'm a morning person. That's such a powerful identity to have when you want to start waking up in the morning. Yes, Meg, you are someone who finishes what you start. This is brilliant. I mean, I'm going to take a moment to pause and let you guys know that the things that you guys are sharing is amazing. Like, I'm a successful graphologist. It's just brilliant. It's so powerful, so insightful. It's just brilliant. And the next step is that, what is a small win that you can create for yourself that's in line with this identity? So again, relating it back to the previous, that what's that small win that's easy to achieve, right? So can you share what could be those small wins for yourself that's easy to achieve, that's in line with your identity? Like, I'm a yogi, so what's the small win related to that? The first learning, so what's the small win? Yes, Jagdish, you said that you are a person who thinks positive and in abundance. So what's the small win that you will achieve? Yes, I am a good leader at home. So what's the small win that you can achieve? Start with 10 minutes of short exercises. Brilliant. Think and respond. Yeah, it's a simple thing to do. Just starting the process. Excellent. Just maybe writing down a goal, striking it off. Pain free movements. Brilliant. Sharing what you love about your work. Yeah. 10-minute video for awareness, researching. Excellent, right? So when you do that, it becomes much easier for you to have a sustainable habit, because you're operating from identity. Like I mentioned earlier, that what you achieve as a habit on the outside is a function of who you see on the inside. It's a function of how you create your identity on the inside, right? And so by operating from this new identity, you're automatically changing the way you perceive yourself, and that will translate into creating small wins. And the definition of habits is that when you do something repeatedly, it becomes a habit and it becomes unconscious. And so when you create these small wins repeatedly, then it will eventually become an unconscious habit. It's like driving a car, right? You drive a car enough, you are going to, it becomes part of you. Now, when you have to drive a car, you don't have to consciously think about it. It's just something that happens. It's just something, it's embodied in your system, it's wired. Even if you stop driving a car for a while and get back in the car, your muscle memory will take over. And that's the same thing that happens here. Operating from identity and creating small wins and doing that repeatedly, it will automatically create your muscle, it will automatically create an embodied learning experience. Does this make sense so far? So are you guys with me? Cool. Brilliant. And okay. And what I'd love for you to do is to keep exploring this, right? Because this is a small online session, but what I'm intending to do is to give you an experience with one habit or one structure, and so that you can then continue to explore this on your own. You can then continue to build on this on your own. All right. The last thing that I would like you to do is I did want to take you through the experience of this, but I'm just being a little aware of time. So I'm just going to give you the structure of this process, and then you can do the experience on your own. All right. Now, one of the most significant thing to do to kind of create a high performance routine is what I call it. This is something I phrase it as building your experience calendar, right? Because most people are used to you all have schedules, right? You all have like your calendar based on tasks. The thing is, everything that you do in life, you don't do it to do those tasks, but it's because it gives you something. Does that make sense so far? So, for example, let's say if I want to exercise, I don't want to exercise just for sake of exercising. I want to exercise because it gives me a certain experience. Like I feel energetic, I feel active. So I'm not doing exercise for the sake of exercising. I'm doing exercise so that I can feel active and energetic. Same with eating healthy food. I am not eating healthy food just for the food because it gives me a certain experience. So everything that you do gives you a certain experience. You never do anything, you never have any goals, or you never take any action for the sake of taking action. It's because it's driving you towards a certain experience. The thing is that most of us are very task focused. When you build your schedule, you're focusing on what you need to do, but people hardly focus on what you experience. And so, as an activity, what I'd love for you to do is build your ideal day. All right. So, kind of just write it down that what does your ideal day look like? If it was the perfect world in a perfect place, given the current context, what does your ideal day look like? And just put it down as a schedule. Now, next to it, what I'd like you to do is write down what experience you will have when you follow your ideal day. So, like when you wake up early in the morning, what will you experience? When you exercise, what will you experience? When you eat healthy, what will you experience? When you be productive, what will you experience? When you spend time on learning, research, growth, what will you experience? So list down the experience next to it. And so that is what I know as that's your experience calendar. So what you're focusing on is that this time of the day, I want to have this experience. Like in the morning, I want to experience peace and calm. From 12 to 1, I want to experience fun. From 1 to 3, I want to experience being active. And so this is what I call the experience calendar, where you're not focusing on only the tasks, but you're also focusing on that on each hour of the day, what's the kind of experience you want to have in your life. Does that make sense so far? Brilliant. Excellent. And so what you want to do is build your experience calendar and then start focusing on the experience. So start focusing on being energetic. Start focusing on being active. When you do, your habits will automatically be taken care of. You'll automatically start exercising. You'll automatically start doing all the different things. Right? So if not every day, at least practice it for next 7 days. Right? So can I have like this as an exercise, like a homework for you guys? where tonight or tomorrow you will build your ideal day and then you'll build your experience calendar. Can I have that as a commitment from you guys? Okay. And not just build it, also live it, right? So live every day for the next 7 days, focusing on the experience you want to have rather than focusing on uh, the tasks or the habit. Does it make sense? Okay. Brilliant. Excellent. Good. So that's like a homework. Just because of the lack of time, so you do this as the homework. Yeah, thanks, Seema. You like the experience planner. It's invented by me. So if you use it, give me credit, okay? Uh, Good. So just to kind of start tying it all together, right? One is to focus on the structure of habits. So build a trigger, uh, build a easy action steps, easy wins, build a fulfilling reward, right? Now, as you do that, focus also on your identity, right? That what's the new identity that you're taking on that will easily allow you to have your small wins. And as you focus on all of this, build your experience calendar and live your experience calendar. Now, if you do this rigorously for next 7 days, eventually, automatically, you will reach in this high performance state that will allow you to, easily make your ideal day accessible to you. And once you start living your ideal day, it becomes a habit. All right. Does this make sense so far? Okay. Brilliant. So before we kind of move on to the next part, any questions? Will be eagerly waiting for the recording. Yes, I will be sharing the PPT and the recording with you guys, so you can always go back to it and practice it. For some of you who had audio issues, you will also get the recording. Okay, one of the question is, let's just do this. Just a minute. Okay. So I've got one question. Any other questions? If you can put it in the chat box, then I'll take that one by one. Okay, while you type those questions, I will take the first question, which is from Pooja. Sorry about that. Who says negative reinforcement is a bad idea to build habits? It completely depends on what those negative reinforcements are. Sometimes it's useful, right? Because a lot of people take action when they're on the gunpoint. And so negative reinforcement isn't always a bad idea. But what you've got to do is you kind of have to look at it that does it help you push forward, or does it kind of hold you back? Because a lot of times when people have negative reinforcement, some people get stuck, and so they don't take action. They get overwhelmed and they get stressed and they get stuck, and which means that they don't go and take action. If that's your response, then that's not a great idea. But if your response is that okay, this is helping you be motivated and helping you move forward, then it could be a good idea. Right? Okay. Next question. How do you handle trigger fatigue? That's an interesting question. I wouldn't say that I have experienced that a lot. And so a simple answer would be to build triggers that are motivating for you. Like, I've been thinking about Mount Everest for at least 4 or 5 years of my life, and I still haven't got that fatigue. So if a trigger is giving you fatigue, then is that a trigger that you want to have, or is it something that you kind of are forced to have? Because if it's a trigger that you're forced to have, then may not be the best strategy to move forward. All right, does that make sense? I hope that answers your question. Okay. Uh, Going to the next question. Let's see. Tamir, how are you using this methodology to prepare yourself to scale Mount Everest? Like I've already mentioned, that for me, my workouts are important part of climbing Everest, because I'm sure that as you've seen, a lot of calamities happen on Everest, and that has increased on day-to-day basis. So for me, being prepared is an important part. I don't want to have a calamity or something bad happen to me while I'm climbing Everest. So I have used the first method of the video of me going on the Everest as a trigger, and that always creates this craving for me to work out and eat healthy. And the reward is that I feel that I'm getting closer to my vision of climbing Everest. I used identity because I see myself as a mountaineer, and so that identity helps me prepare as well. And of course, I live by experience calendar. uh, I I've stopped making it as a schedule, which is something I think I'd like to get back to, like putting it down on paper. But in general, my sense of living life is through experience. So these are the ways that I'm using these to kind of scale Everest. Uh, the next question is, how do you sustain these habits? If you create a really strong, powerful identity, then sustaining habits won't be a question. It will just automatically happen. It just it's just a natural thing. Like I gave an example with my friend Nitin, right? Because I created that identity, he just naturally stayed back to help me out clean up the house. And so when you are creating a really coherent, really powerful identity that you relate with, then you'll automatically sustain these habits. Cool? Okay. Uh, Next question. How can this model help in building habits in teenagers? I'm sure a lot of parents are thinking about that right now since you're in the lockdown. Uh, it's the same process, uh, but some things you can do with your teenagers easily, like build powerful identities for them. I would say that that's what internal habits are about, right? That's what internal focus is all about. Like I mentioned earlier, there is external habits and then there is internal habits. Focus on building strong internal habits, and it will help you build habit in teenagers. So create powerful identities for them. Tell them that, hey, you are someone who is very disciplined. You are someone who does things on time, because as teenagers, when they start building this for themselves, they will automatically start building habits. All right. So I hope that answers your question. How is routine and habits related? Uh, Routine is something that you do on day-to-day basis. Eventually, that relates to habits. But routine is more, I think, daily task. Habits could be more internally focused. Like I said, that habits could be in your thinking. Habits could be in terms of your behaviors. I mean, your internal thoughts. Habits are also something which may not exactly be day-to-day thing. Like there could be a habit that you have that you do once a month, right? Once a month you take time out for yourself. Once a month that you take do something for yourself, like go on a holiday. So which isn't necessarily a routine, but it's still a habit that you follow. Okay, I'm just going to take a few more questions just in the interest of time. Uh, how to dissolve the triggers that already create unconsciously? For now, there are lots of processes in NLP that we do to dissolve triggers. But for now, I would say the best thing to do is become aware of the triggers. Because the more you become aware of the triggers, naturally you will start dissolving them. Because then you're aware that, okay, this is something that's triggering this, so I'm going to stop doing that. So awareness is a great place to start. Right? Okay. I'm going to take this one. If your existing habit is feeling low self esteem, not feeling good enough, what could be a small win reward in this countering habit? I mean, I can't really answer that because this is your habit, Kritika, and it's something that you've got to answer. But I can give an example uh, that a small habit that I would create for myself is maybe do 2 or 3 things every day that helps me feel good about myself. So consciously pick 3 things. It could be reading a book, it could be watching TV, it could be playing PlayStation, it could be having time for self, it could be journaling. But pick 2 or 3 things that you can easily do every day that will help you feel good. You do that enough number of time, and you'll automatically start feeling good. All right. I hope all of this makes sense. There are lots of messages, so I'm not able to keep up with all of them. But I hope that this is helping in certain ways. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you. I hope this session is helping you guys. Brilliant. Okay. Excellent. So personally, I've had an amazing experience. I mean, like I said, that you guys were perfectly engaged, and you guys were amazingly with me all the time. Some of the most amazing insights that I have seen on any session. So this has just been brilliant. I just want to give a quick few updates on what's next. Uh, we're going to do a lot more of these sessions, so you're already on the email list, so we'll keep you posted about it. But specifically, we're doing the session on beliefs, which is going to be on live Facebook live on our NLP conference page. So if you haven't liked that page, or if you haven't followed that page, go. It is going to be with me and Ashok Subramaniam, who's going to be joining me, and we're going to have a conversation on how beliefs are impacting our current way of responding to the crisis. We're also planning to build a habit system. So it's going to be like a system where we're going to do like daily exercises and daily tasks. We're going to give, and this is going to be like a community thing. All of us are going to do this together, where it could be like 1 week could be about waking up early in the morning. Next week could be about being resourceful. The week after that could be about eating healthy. The next week could be about creating powerful identity. So it's going to be very transformational, and it's going to be quite an interesting way to kind of do this together as a community and go through this process together. We're going to be starting that probably by next week. So if you guys would like to be part of that community, just let us know. Uh, it's going to be on a separate platform, and we're going to probably have like a minimal fee for that, like $5, which is like 300 rupees. It's just to cover our operational cost of working on that platform. But yeah, if you'd like to be part of it, I'll share the details with you, and you can join that platform. And as a community, we can do this together and grow together on building powerful habits. And of course, we're going to have next webinar, which is mostly going to be taken by an amazing trainer called Matt Caro Fisher. So that's going to be brilliant. We'll keep you posted about this. Another thing that I wanted to check was that if you have something that you want us to explore and you want us to cover, please feel free to let me know, because for me, this is us doing this together, us doing this as a community, and I really want to build the Thought Labs and the NLP Conference India community so that we can help and support each other and take this to next level every time we get together. So if you want to see something, if you want to experience something, just let me know. Email me, reply to the email one of our team members, and I'll do everything in my power or control to make that happen. And a session to help find source of dissatisfaction. Okay, brilliant. Well, I'll keep this in mind. So you can just put it down in the chat box, and I can have a look at it later and build sessions around it to get some trainers to do the sessions. But at the end, thank you so much. This was an exceptional experience for me. This was a brilliant session. I loved every single second of it. You guys are amazing audience to have, amazing delegates, amazing participants to have. So thank you so much. I will keep you posted about the community thing. I will keep you posted about the next webinars and session and building new sessions. So thank you so much, and hopefully I will see you guys in the next session. Yes, review session to come out of perfectionist attitude and real performance. Thank you so much, guys. It was brilliant, and I will see you guys soon. Take care. Thanks, Abhi. Yeah, thanks, Guru. Thanks, Yotesh. Excellent, brilliant. I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Thank you. Good night. Good night. Thanks. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Guru. Fine. Thanks, Shweta. Thanks, Debbie. Brilliant. Yeah, Niti, thank you. Thanks, Amy. Good. Is there a separate email list for Europe, for European time zone? I'm usually in the office meeting at this time. Today is Easter here. I don't have it, but let's see what we can figure out. We'll figure it out, Kush. I have a separate kind of program. So when we do the community thing, it is going to be keeping all the time zones in mind because it's going to be daily things. It's going to be okay. For online sessions, we're planning some sessions in European time. So we'll explore this and we'll figure it out. But thanks for letting me know, Kush. Thanks, Richard. It was brilliant to have you here. All right. Thank you, guys. I will see you guys soon.